Okay, I know I said I was going to talk about a game that I had bought several times over across different systems, and I bought different iterations of it as well. And in a way, what I'm about to talk about isn't a complete lie. While I didn't buy the same exact game several times over, I have bought different iterations of it across older to newer systems. I remember playing this game a long time ago in the arcades, and I had hoped at the time that I would eventually get what I thought of as the definitive edition. That was before the year 2000, and since then, SNK has decided to evolve this game not just once, but twice. Looks like I won't be reviewing a fighting game from 2014, but instead a classic from 1998. Well, ish.
First things first, I have been and always will be a Street Fighter fan. The venerable Capcom franchise is what got me into fighting games in the first place. But a piece of me will always love the King of Fighters. While I got my start with King of Fighters 96, it was 98 that really showed me what the series was capable of at the time.
And apparently what is now known as SNK Playmore thought so as well, since not only did this game jump from arcades and the Neo Geo to the Dreamcast and beyond, tweaks and balances have been instituted, requiring new versions. I never thought that King of Fighters would ever go through the old Street Fighter upgrade syndrome.
The screens you're seeing here are from the Steam version of the game, dubbed Ultimate Match Final Edition. The PlayStation 2 box you saw does not have the Final Edition tweaks or balances, but is essentially the same game. For those not familiar with the King of Fighters series, the basic concept boils down to three-person teams instead of one-on-one, best 2 out of 3 rounds fights. Each team is comprised of 3 different fighters, and it's up to you to defeat all 3 members of each opposing team with yours. King of Fighters 98 was called Dream Match Never Ends in Japan, and the reason for this is rather odd. You see, KOF was an annual game with a story that progressed over the years. By the time the first story concluded with King of Fighters 97, a few of the fighters were, dead.
Yeah, they actually killed off several of the fighters as part of the story. Most of the time it's usually boss characters, but some of the other characters were actually integral to progressing the plot. Just don't ask me to explain it all. It doesn't really work. I should know. I tried that once already.
The Dream Match idea of the game allowed the creators to bring back several fighters and teams from previous games. This particular version adds even more, bringing back older teams and even bosses.
I mean, come on, we all wanted to see Mr. Big and Geese Howard take on Goenitsu and Orochi, right? Right? Am I right?
Characters and settings aren't the only things that have been added to KOF 98 blah-de-blah. The Super Meter function gets a new Ultimate version that allows you to customize between the advanced and extra characteristics. I've always found running more handy, but I'd prefer to roll out of the way of attacks with some room rather than time my counters. It's almost like the custom grooves from Capcom vs. SNK 2 back in the day.
This game personally brings back a lot of memories for me. But does it stand the test of time?
The Ultimate Match Final Edition of King of Fighters 98 is still built off the old Neo Geo game. In an era where fighting games are either rendered in 3D or drawn in 2 dimensions with an artistic flair, KOF 98 shows its age, no matter the version. SNK Playmore made no attempt to improve the graphics, even redoing the intro with the same style graphics and sampled sound. For me, this is part of the game's charm, and yes, they did upscale everything to look pretty smooth, even in 1080p, but newcomers who want to see where King of Fighters 13 came from may be turned off by its presentation. And let's not forget the difficulty. While fighting games have always had a little bit of a learning curve, I found SNK games to be exceptionally crazy, and even with the tweaks, the barrier to entry of this game is still like hitting a brick wall. Once you break through, it's very satisfying, but you'll be ramming head first into it for a while. Bosses tend to be extremely hard, and Omega Rugal holds nothing back yet again. Here we get to the nitpicky part of the review, where the game seems to be more satisfying if you buy the right controller. This game is not a keyboard game by any means, although it is playable with one. I highly recommend a controller, and as long as you have at least a 4-face button layout, which almost every modern controller has, you'll be fine. However, your mileage may vary on the type of controller you use, depending if you go with something standard, like, say, an Xbox 360 or one controller with a D-pad, or go the full-on arcade joystick route.
ROMs down memory lane always come with a price. Sometimes a game is remade with a new look and feel, and that can make or break the new release. But sometimes the game is just kept the same, and they just tweak the already working mechanics. No matter how the game is remade, though, I will always ask the question, is the King of Fighters 98 Ultimate Match Final Edition worth your cash? I know, it doesn't say Final Edition on this. It's a box!
When I got the Steam version of King of Fighters 98, I bought it as part of a triple pack during the 2015 summer sale. It roughly puts the game at a little over $3, with a Steam retail price of $14.99. The PlayStation 2 version costs about $20, depending on where you decide to purchase the game. I'm not even going to get into the other versions, which require either legacy systems or you to get used to touchscreens. Even with the original version of KOF 98 embedded in this update, this game is definitely not worth $15 to $20. The best place to get this is definitely Steam, and you should definitely wait for a sale.
That verdict I just gave may make me sound a little jaded, but in all honesty, $15 for something like this, even with all its tweaks and balances, is still a lot to me for something that's essentially a 17-year-old game. Don't get me wrong, I love this game, but compared to contemporary 2D fighters like, say, Ultra Street Fighter 4 or Mortal Kombat 10, it doesn't hold up. With that said, I love this game, and I'm really glad that other iterations have come out and tweaked it to make it the way it is now. So, with that said, who wants to hear the whole story of King of Fighters, huh? Alright, you got a moment? Sit down, sit a spell. See, it all started with these two families, the Kusanagi and the Yatta family, not to do with that video that involves the guys running around with the leaves. Apparently, the Yatta family runs into this 8-headed dragon and says, hey, the Kusanagi family's going to betray you. So they start fighting.